This is part 2, November 28th, 2022. This is week 14. Next week, we'll have students present their work, what they did in terms of their final projects. Today, I've sent back to everybody the super summary. I read it, marked on it, scanned it, and sent it back to all of you. As I said in my email, I just added an automatic 10 points to everybody's score. It just, in one place it said 5 dimensions worth 10 points each. That means 50 points. In another place I had 40 points. And it seemed more like a 50-point assignment to me. So the easiest way was to just grade it as if it was 40 points and add 10. Does that make sense? I mean, I think all of you felt like it was probably a 50-point assignment or a 100-point assignment to you too, looking at your work, especially Megan's team, which submitted like a 15-page document to me that I was reading. Megan, Gina, and who else is on your team, Megan? I forgot. No, you, Gina, and Chris, I think. Yeah. So yeah.
Yes, it's Chris. Yep, Gina, Chris, and I. Yeah, sorry about that. I know. I was like, this is really long. He's going to be psyched.
I'm like, I got everyone done by 4:30 this morning or 4 a.m. except for yours.
I know. I'm sorry.
I know I slept on it and decided to wake up and then attack it. But I think actually, I think Patrick had you beat. I was pretty close. You're pretty even. So I did.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I finished with his late last night, and I said I read One Monster. Nathalie, yours was pretty long too, I will say, but very interesting. I will say yours is a great example for other people, and so maybe we should post yours. Your recap was wonderful that you provided. So Xiao Ying also had a kind of a recap in hers, and Ga had a very unique. Ga, yours is the first one I read, and it was probably I'd say that Megan's was very, very unique. Now everyone's was unique in some way, and no one is the same. They're all different, but Ga, yours is very pointed in thinking about the School of Business and how this course can impact your daily work environment. So I found that real exciting to read. I started with yours, in fact. So that was, in fact, I had both classes turned in all their assignments. I started with the super summary because that's kind of a normal, quote unquote, kind of assignment, the reflection on the course and what you learned. It's it's not like every day, but it's kind of normal in terms of types of assessments. So I started with that because that was easy for me to figure out how much time it would take, and I could get that one done. So I won't get to your other one for a few days, maybe a couple of days. I want to try and read a couple of the dissertation proposals for my dissertation proposal class because I meet with them tomorrow. So, and tonight a grant is due. So just a little thing like that. I have to write a grant. No, I'm resubmitting a grant that wasn't funded last year, just updating it. So so it's not as hard as it sounds, but yeah. So several things I have to do. I did not take 5 minutes off during Thanksgiving break. Did not see my family for the 3rd year in a row. This has been crazy. So, but I'm going to try and get grades done rather quickly this year. And so after next week, week 15, you should have grades, I would hope, the next day. So, they're not going to drag on for a while. So I will try and submit them as soon as I can. The other thing I want to get on the recording is if anyone wants to sit in R622 next semester, my dissertation proposal class, and are worried that they're going to take this course in 2 semesters, but not have me because I don't think I'm going to teach it next fall. You can sit in the spring. You can feel free to sit in the spring for the synchronous sessions. I don't know when we'll have them, but this year almost everybody in 795 came every week. They apparently felt they got a lot out of it. The other thing is if you haven't already had R511, the Instructional Tech Foundations course, and you like this course, I'd say a good sister course to that is R511. There's a little bit overlap, but it's more theory-based, a little bit more theory-based. But I bring in a lot of, I would say, well, I bring people's articles we're reading, but I think a lot of the movers and shakers in the instructional tech field I brought in last time, and in fact had a playlist of them. Similar to what we've had here, but here we've had more breadth and more variety of folks coming in, like Ray Schroeder, who was trained in radio television, for instance, and so forth. And so, because it's the first time teaching this course, I'll differentiate the two courses more and more over time, and maybe also link them together so one leads to another one more and more over time. But overall, I think, it's worked, the course has worked itself out. It's just little things like the points for something. I created a rubric, as you saw, for this super summary. I didn't have that. So things I'm developing on the fly in this course. And so some things are the syllabus is kind of being added to as we go. But I think the thing that for me was the one thing that I'm taking a little bit of pride in is the fact that syllabus was designed in 3 days and it's a pretty decent syllabus for representing this course, but I had a lot of help. I didn't do all that in 3 days. I reused a lot of stuff from Dr. Brush and the other professor who was teaching this course. So I borrowed and begged and stole from them, but I designed a lot of that came, it just happened. Designing a new course at a college level, as Megan knows, I think you're teaching at the college level, right, Megan? A community, yeah, it's not easy when someone says, "Oh, you got a new prep or a new course." It's never
right. Yeah, no, that is very true. Yes, it is not easy.
It just doesn't roll right off the fingers and say, "Oh, here's a syllabus," So, in the early days, my first 3 years at West Virginia, I created 4, 5, or 6 new courses, like most early career people end up doing. But as you move on in your career, you kind of get used to what you're typically been doing. But it seems like every couple of years they've been adding. So they added the 795 course, the dissertation prep a couple of years ago. I started doing that. R511 about 6 or 7 years ago, I started doing that, and now this one. So and I think I might try to do an honors course for undergraduates in a year and a half or 2 years from now, and teach in the honors program, if I can, the Hutton honors. So I think we also have to the final 2 weeks of discussion, and we split people up into 2 groups instead of 4 groups. In reading your super summaries, several people commented they've enjoyed the discussion and the interactions, but some weeks were better than other weeks. Some people had really inspired them for the interactions. Some people specifically by name. I think Mika had a couple of posts that people got engaged with. Christian had a nice summary post. So, but some people commented the smallness of the groups were a problem at times when people were delayed in their postings. We've combined 2 teams together, so we have 2 groups instead of 4. And I think the last 2 groups, I think, will be, for some of you, much more fulfilling, because there'll be more people giving you feedback and responding to what you're posting. It'll be a chance for you to meet other people that you hadn't met in your other groups. So I think week 14 and 15 will be different and important. Soon, maybe you want to talk about week 14 and 15 before I go to my PowerPoint.
I think that you cover a lot of things, and then actually I have read your post multiple times. This is my 3rd time to read it again to better understand, and I realized that actually 4 laws is kind of overwhelmed with the people. That's because they think that they don't have any freedom to perform other law. Even if I said that you can do that, but I think that original, assigned laws makes, students feel, stuck with that assigned law. So I have to do that, something like that. So actually this time I only assign the moderator and summarizer, and then you can perform any law. So you can just pose your questions and answer, just the regular discussion. So hopefully it'll be better. And then I totally agree with the, small number of people. And then just one person is delayed. and the whole discussions will be delayed. So that's the problem. I saw that. So that's really great comment. And then I talked to Dr. Bonk, and then we, kind of, changed it, edited, improved based on your comments. That they are really great comments. That they are so interesting is that you guys actually said that it's you pointed out some problem, but even if actually your posters are really great. So weird, right? You guys said that, oh, we are overwhelmed, so it's really hard to, but actually I realized that I graded your posting, but it doesn't apply for your grade, just for my research. And then your posts are really high quality. So that's a really interesting point, even if you said that, oh, it's not very good for me. And then, but anyway, your posts are really good. So thank you for your participation. And I'm very, very moved. That's because anyway, yeah, you guys, actually, I got really great posts right now. I'm really happy to read, to better understand. That's a great point. And hopefully I will share the result later, after analyzing or, data. So hopefully, Thank you so much.
So that starter wrapper kind of notion or moderator is the normal way I do things, with some role taking in between in the middle of the semester. And so hopefully people will pick up on that and take more liberty, more free rein in the next couple of weeks. Any comments on Dr. Schroeder's interaction? I know it was a little bit odd to have him come in by phone, not even his phone, my phone, but did it work? I'm just curious, were you able to hear him effectively? I used to see heads nodding. Anyone want to verbalize?
Yeah, I could hear him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he tended to answer right away. He caught the questions because you had written them up. I think writing them up ahead of time is something in the future I'm going to do in here more often, and having students, even if they can't attend, send me the questions. Christian?
I think it went really well. It was obviously, I'm kind of distractible, so that the whole interaction was a little bit distracting for me, but just listening to it, I tried to like mentally shut out the visual, but just listening to it. I mean, I came away with it with 2 words, focus shifting. I think that's what it's focus shifting. And so it's like all of these things that we're learning about, we have to be focused on the future. We have to shift our focus to the future in a dramatic way.
See, I thought you were going to say 5. Go ahead. Yeah.
Because it's just it's moving so fast.
Yeah.
And it will be surrounded. It's surrounding us already. and us figuring it out. We're the ones to figure it out, because that's who we are. We're in this generation that has to figure it out.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say, 5 words.
Oh, I said lots more than 2.
Dr. Bonk, please drink decaf.
You're shaking. You don't drink coffee anymore, right?
Yeah, I don't drink coffee anymore, but I drink, decaf. Elliot Jordan,
Okay.
another alum of IST, has joined us. Welcome in, Elliot. Dr. Schroeder has left. The Q&A with him is over, unfortunately, Elliot. But I'm going to have part 2 of my, and we'll mute you, Elliot. But part 2 of my smart learning environments discussion here. So welcome in. Let's see. Anyone else have a final thought or comment and a question about points or anything that's due? Or let me ask this before we go. How many? Go ahead. Yeah.
I was gonna say, so next, nothing else should be due, right? Everything was due last week. So
It's all
next,
in.
yeah. So next week you want us just putting together a little, do you want like a PowerPoint summarizing some stuff? Would that be helpful?
So for 2 bonus points, anyone who does a PowerPoint presentation, that would be really great. And If you don't have a PowerPoint, I will still give you 2 points just to present and do something so we can hear from you. I won't differentiate. But yeah, it'd be great. The more refined it is, we can learn from it. It's wonderful. But I just want to have everyone kind of share what they've done and maybe get some feedback on what they've done. So yeah. That was a great question. That was what I was going to mention. So
I took the word that.
Yeah, you did. Nathalie?
So for those that are presenting, are we to reach out to you and let you know that we'll be presenting some slides?
It'd be nice if you sent Cindy and I a note so we can say what order and people might go in. If I know all 17 people are coming in, it's gonna, I don't think we'll have all 17. I would assume we'll have 5, 6, 7 people, but and if you do send us a note and you ask to be the first one or the last one, we can accommodate that then. So, you don't have to put a preference, but if you do, it'd be beneficial for us to know that you'd love. For me personally, I either like going first or last. And often last. I tend to like going last. In terms of speaking, in terms of presenting, sometimes being first and getting it done is good. So
Yeah, I'm gonna reach out to the group. I think we're all gonna be here next week, but I'm gonna send you all an email. Hopefully I can go first, just because with my kids and everything, getting them in bed, that would be easier. But I'll shoot you an email and I'll
Yep.
just. Well, thank you.
sounds good. So Sumi's already writing that down. So yeah, we got that, and it's good to know your colleagues will be, and I also haven't read them yet, so I'm excited. Just next couple of days I'll be looking, and some of you sent me video clips to take a look at. I think Ga had sent me a video link, and maybe some other people have. Christian, you had unmuted? No?
I was just wondering, is there any guest speakers next week?
Nope.
Okay.
All of you are the guest speakers.
Yes. I thought that was the case, but I wanted to check.
Well, it's a good question, because there could be someone who I said, oh, maybe come back in week 15, but that is in my dissertation prep class. There are a couple of people who were guest speakers early in the semester. I recommend that they come back in week 15 to hear from the students and their final projects. But I don't think in here I made anything official like that, but you never know. Things just come up. In this class, oftentimes we have someone visiting camp when it's taught live. When my classes, sometimes just someone shows up, and like Elliot was here for a second, Okay, let me share my screen and see if this is possible. So I had this talk of 3 frameworks to think about in terms of technology changing. And technology is changing because we're the tools for engagement, tools for access, and tools for individualization or customization. I think I was on the 3rd part. Before that, I had talked about the access, getting access through synchronous, through global education, all this. I went through this last time, but customization. So I think I had shown this Mosaic project. 2 people in here, in fact, Wes and Megan. There was someone in your group who was part of the Mosaic project. Was it Chris or was it Gina?
Oh, that's a great question. I forget.
So we got 2 students out of 17 who were part of IU's Mosaic project. And when Merve presented a few weeks ago about active learning spaces, they were in the project. I didn't realize that. And so spaces for learning are changing to help customize the learning for both students and teachers, to train teachers how to utilize these active, engaging learning spaces, or theaters, or clusters, or whatever you want to call them. Idea gardens, I think, was one of the ones Merve talked about. So space is changing. But also the way we divide up and design our courses is changing, in terms of moving more to hybrid or HyFlex or blended or mixed models of education, to get students to attend a course either in a physical space or in a virtual space. And I think I read probably half of the papers that I've been reading for the last few days on super summaries mentioned high flex model or hybrid model. And my former student, Brian Beatty, designed high flex or hybrid, and I probably need to bring him into this class next fall when I teach the course, and he can help promote his free book and the high flex or hybrid approach to education. I utilized this, as Christian knows, in the fall last year and in the spring last year, and it's not easy to enable students to attend face-to-face or online every week, to choose a different format, to have some days where you come face-to-face, like Christian would drive down from Indianapolis, and sometimes they're coming online. So the flexibility is there for us to enable students to do that, but it's difficult for instructors to orchestrate that in an effective and engaging manner to make sure everyone is feeling they're part of the course experience. But this is part 3. This is about individualization or customization of learning, because we want to create an army, a virtual army, an army of the world of self-directed learners. Now, in the past week, I have sent you a paper and added to your syllabus the 15 guidelines that Mena Ju and I designed for fostering self-directed learning. In the past week, we have had a sister article accepted for publication on our research over the past decade on self-directed learning. In the past 2 days, we had a meta-analysis article, the meta-analysis of research on self-directed learning, accepted in a journal called Distance Education Journal, not Distance Learning, Distance Ed, DE Journal. It's a top tier journal. It may come out next month, in fact. It's really cool. So I've had a couple of cool things happen in terms of our efforts in trying to understand what can help people become more self-directed and how people can maybe internalize aspects of a self-directed learning approach. So I just wanted to point that out there. I've done research in it. I've done now a meta-analysis of other people's research, and I've designed guidelines for self-directed learning, because people are going online to learn K-12 courses in Spanish and advanced placement chemistry and physics and math, and they're ramping up their skills getting ready for college, or they're learning skills they didn't have a chance to learn during the pandemic, or if they were ill or sick or bullied or pregnant or whatever might have happened to interrupt their K-12 student careers. These open learning platforms enable students to learn content. There's also Duolingo, which I'm doing research on, and just resubmitted a paper on this as well, and hope my fingers crossed on that. We interviewed 10 people. We surveyed about 50 or 60 people who are using Duolingo about their investments, their motivations, their self-directedness in learning a language online. Now, Duolingo is not the only game in town, but it's the one that's gotten a lot of publicity. It's free and open to use at the base level. It was created by someone at Carnegie Mellon University who also created CAPTCHA. CAPTCHA is the one where you type in letters and have to match the letters and so forth. So that was his first tool that he built, and then he built Duolingo. And there are millions of people learning a language, Spanish, Japanese, Italian, English, whatever, with this tool. So why do they learn this? So we want to understand what they're doing in terms of self-directed learning, and then we also want to understand the benefits of self-directed learning. In part, you're getting identity as a learner. You're getting self-esteem as a learner, or confidence that you can succeed if you initiate your learning instead of avoidance, what's called approach motivation instead of avoidance motivation. So if you've taken P540 with me, or even R511, I talk a bit about those different forms of motivation and self-esteem and self-efficacy as a learner. But it's not just self-esteem and self-efficacy of a learner, it's having this persistence to keep trying at something that you can eventually succeed, just like writing a journal article and trying to get it published. One of the people out there who's gotten a lot of headlines and a lot of money from the Gates Foundation is Salman Khan. When I gave a keynote at Blackboard's conference about 9 years or so ago in New Orleans. He was also giving a keynote. They flew him in on a private jet and paid him probably over $100,000. They flew me economy, and I don't know if I got paid, but anyways, we were the two keynotes of the conference. He's a much more famous person than I am, but he was an investment banker who on the side was teaching his nieces and nephews geometry and algebra, and he used different tools online to teach them, and the videos he created went viral, and the Khan Academy kind of spun out of that. And by the way, I think I'm recording this, right, Sune? I did it record, yeah. So the Gates Foundation and Bill Gates got interested in how computer programming can be taught, and finance and English and all sorts of things. And they gave him, I think, $10 million to create different kinds of assessments that might personalize it. They might figure out the bugs in students' thinking. They have different heat maps on problems, and they see where students encounter problems, and then they were able to ameliorate the problems by giving hints and clues or putting people back. It's kind of a computer adaptive testing, if you will, right? And so the Khan Academy has gone global. It's all around the world. People are using it in India, where they might not have teachers. Kids might go to a computer lab and be learning from the Khan Academy their English or math or something else. But again, they've tried to personalize it by having an AI, artificial intelligence, that Ray Schroeder just talked about, built within the system to analyze students' problems that they have. This woman here, I had the pleasure of publishing with earlier this year. She's also University of Wisconsin alum, like I am, but much smarter than I am. She's got she doesn't have a PhD, she has a master's, but she's a genius. She built Stephen Hawking's communication system. Okay, so we're talking about someone really smart. She created the system where if you blink at a computer, you can interact with. If you've got physical disabilities and are immobilized, just having twitches in your muscles can control computer technologies, and that's how she's helping the world out the people with special needs. If you click on that video, it's very short. She works in Intel. She's a research fellow at Intel Lab, I think in Portland, and where an IST alum is. So there's an IST alum from 10 years ago. Her name is Senem Aslan. She was a guest last spring. Christian will remember. I don't know who else. Gal remember her as well last spring. So Senem gave a talk on the AI tools for young children that they're building at Intel. And it was quite fascinating. So we had a study looking at early elementary and even preschool kids learning online during the early days of COVID that came out. And it's free online. It's in the Online Learning Journal. You can read about it. But she's creating more personalized learning. So Salman Khan is Lana Nachman. It should be Nahman. There's an N on the end of that. And then we got all these chat bots, and we've got all these capabilities of replaying our interactions, our having voicedness to our books that we write, our articles, and having an AI voice behind our articles and publications. And you can choose a British actor or an American actor or something else to pronounce a female or a male or this or that. So yeah, a lot of AI voice actors are helping humanize this instead of getting the old tinny voice in the background. And even the tinny voice, I mean, I'm sure Christian knows this too. Sometimes if you type something in and you hear your words, it doesn't matter if it's a tinny voice, it's just pretty kind of cool just hearing someone else pronounce them. And you can catch some errors that you made in writing the paper when you hear someone trying to pronounce the words that you produce. So Christian, yeah.
So that application or that software that I was talking about, the oh goodness, Soul
Machine.
Soul Machine, yeah. So not only can you train it to say what you're wanting to say, but it can also speak in different languages. So it takes you could train it to duplicate you and your thoughts that you want to present, but it can also present those in different languages.
Right.
Because why not?
Oh, why not? Yeah, why not? And maybe you get multiple languages too, I mean.
The free version, you can use 12 different languages.
Wow.
You can
Wow.
have 100 conversations.
Imagine this class a decade from now and what we'll be talking about. I mean, literally, this is the first iteration. I mean, in 10 years, we'll have Christian come back and be speaking to us. It won't really be Christian, it'll be his duplicate, explaining what he learned 10 years ago in the class and how content's changed, So again, this final lecture here is relating to smart learning environments. And so we're designing learning environments at the K-12 level, the college level, corporate training level, government, informal, military, whatever, blended, hybrid, fully online, face-to-face, whatever, these environments, informal, non-traditional. But there's these other augmentative tools like AI within the loop that are going to change all those environments. What we envision today to be a typical learning environment is not going to be the typical learning environment in a decade. For 2,000 years, 2,300 years, we could look at what Plato was doing in Academos and say, pretty much what's happening today. It's a teacher lecturing in front of a bunch of people. We're not sitting in groves outside at Academos. We're sitting in rows instead of groves in lecture halls in Indianapolis or Bloomington or wherever else. But it's the same model. It's an expert model delivering instruction to somebody else. Well, we add AI in the loop, we add chatbots, and we add global interaction with our peers and participatory learning, building products with other people and so forth. Those learning environments are dramatically changing. When we have the Khan Academy teaching auxiliary, ancillary material whenever we want, supplemental material, and having Arizona State embrace those courses that are, built within an adaptive learning framework. And we could have Peter Von Leusen, an IST alum, come back to speak to us next year. He spoke in R511 a year ago. To me, it's been a few years. But he runs a couple of different centers and labs at Arizona State to try and help in terms of AI-based master's degrees and undergraduate courses and all this kind of stuff. So Arizona State's one of the leaders. They have the Starbucks contract. So everybody at Starbucks, every barista at Starbucks was guaranteed a 2-year degree paid for by Starbucks, and now a 4-year degree. And the courses were coming from Arizona State. They have many other things at Arizona State. So Arizona State's one of the leaders out there, and they actually have a conference around the change process in higher education that's happening today. I forget the exact name or the title of that course or that conference. But Christian or Sunne could look up the name of it. Just type Arizona State annual conference on new technologies. It's got G in the title, G something, I forget. So biology courses and math courses and other kinds of things to increase completion rates. So biology, a lot of these screener courses in biology, calculus, chemistry, students are dropping out like flies. And if we can get them to sustain it, we can do a lot of good for the state that we're teaching within, state of Indiana, Arizona, or wherever, so people have a degree when they end. And whether it's adding a bot like Jill Watson or some other, I forget what this bot's name is, but Jill Watson and others were just found to be just as effective as the TAs. Now, if they had Sunme, there's no way that chatbot's as good as Sunme, but most TAs are not as good as Sunme. Or Xiaoying was great TA last year as well. Christian's been a TA as well. We've had some really great TAs. I apologize to anyone else out there who I haven't mentioned, but those are 3 people here in this class that are all been my TAs. If you have these bots being able to provide incidental, supplemental, transitionary forms of information on the fly to solve a student problem at 11 o'clock at night and not wake you up with a phone call, I think that's a good thing. If you're not interrupted constantly by student little questions, and you're able to embed in the system standard types of answers for the typical questions that you have. Now, there is a tool called Piazza that is like a crowdsource answering tool that peers can rate the kinds of answers to questions. Piazza lets the students in the class answer each other's questions before they go to the TA or the instructor and so forth. I think that was built at Stanford as well. So Georgia State has found that these chat box boost student learning and performance. So this is what would be called part of a smart learning environment, right? If you have tools that you can access and you have them right next to you. So when Dr. Schroeder has a problem coming in, I have my smart learning environment right here. I mean, this is basically a supercomputer in 1981 terms. This would have been a supercomputer even in 1998 terms, but now today we've gone well beyond that. And also within these smart learning environments, we have to account for the students' learning in some way, shape, or form. And as we account for their learning, their students will want to get credits for what they've done. They want to get some recognition for what. So micro-credentials are starting to gain some traction as being, valid and valuable signs that their students have learned something within that sphere of learning, whatever it was. And so these small snippets of learning, these micro credentials are having a macro impact on individual lives. And so when we interviewed 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds and 60-year-olds and 70-year-olds using MIT Open Courseware, they were saying those courses were changing their lives. But if they could get a credential behind taking these free and open classes from MIT or from Indiana or whatever, even better, something on their CVs. So I think our resumes will have three parts to them. We're going to have our normal traditional degrees like you're going to get now at Indiana. Underneath that are going to be micro credentials. Underneath that are going to be informal learning explorations. Learning something and just being self-directed in but not having a credential behind it. I think, well, right now it's kind of ridiculous when Christian, you've been living, you're 24 years old now. So he's been living 24 years old, and he's got on his resume 3 lines for his degrees, right? He's got his college degree where would you get your undergrad degree, Christian?
University of Indianapolis.
Yeah. You're in Indianapolis. That's a good place. Yeah. My daughter got her master's there. And then your master's at IU, and now your doctorate. 3 lines, 3 little lines. And yet, you got all this other stuff on your resume. You presented somewhere, you did some helping at a conference, has an equal amount of space to it. But you have these 3 short little lines about your education, which represent much more of who you are and what you've done. And so I think in the future, we'll have more recognition for that's going to be coming, and it's going to be elevated in importance, of course. And we're now to have a lot of these bite-sized chunks on our mobile devices. And there are companies being formed that are helping you get these micro credentials or nano degrees. And Raj, who came to a couple of the sessions that we had earlier in the semester, did his dissertation on that. And if you survey college campuses across the US, which people have done, you find that they're starting to get really interested in offering these micro credentials, because as Dr. Schroeder pointed out, we have a academic cliff, I think it's called. We have 12 years in a row of falling enrollments and rising enrollments online. If the only way we can sustain the campus structures that we have is by moving online and by adding micro credentials or nano degrees, then that's the direction that they're going to go or going to proceed. As you can see here in some of the data, and this is a free PDF that you can download on how to understand what's going on in this space. So as I said, micro credentials are starting to be more accepted, and there's a new book by Scott Van Pelt and Arthur Levine on this, and they appeared, it's called The Great Upheaval, and they appeared in my show Silver Lining for Learning, or Scott did, about a month ago. Higher education's past, present, an uncertain future. And Arthur Levine, a controversial person in the higher ed space, but one who's well recognized. Scott, who came on our show, is a younger guy from UPenn, the business school out there, that famous business school that I think one of our last presidents supposedly got his degrees at. I forget what, what is that business school called?
Wharton.
Yeah, Wharton. Yeah, thank you. So Scott's at Wharton, I believe. And so, it was fascinating talking to him and we had people from Credly on. So Credly's an accrediting agency for these micro credentials. So it was maybe a month and a half ago, about a month ago, and I could look for the link. Soon, if you remind me, I'll try and find the link for that show if people are interested. And if you look at the charts here, people don't want graduate degrees anymore. Sorry, they don't want. They do want EDDs. I'll say that they're growing. They do want online masters, but they don't want face-to-face PhDs anymore. They don't want face-to-face masters anymore. They want either get an online, micro credential or masters or an EDD or PhD online. They don't want to devote the time that has to come to campus. They'll still go for bachelors for now. Bachelor's degrees are still going to happen for quite a while, but they'll be more blended in nature. But you look at 2012 to 2020, and the growth is happening in the non-degree certificate kinds of programs, micromasters as EDX calls them, in data science, leadership, and other kinds of fields, Google IT certificates and so forth, and skills training, non-degree training. Several of you in your super summaries talked about this, talking about wanting to take the content of this class immediately into job setting and not, wait till you get your degree completed. So we have to start thinking about these micro-based learning environments and what they offer learners and what more longer degree programs do. The macro-based learning measure things from semesters and days as opposed to minutes. So in this time-bound society, the left-hand side, the micro-learning side of 10-minute kinds of learning, skill-based learning, on the fly, just in time, on demand, is in higher demand being requested than the macro learning kinds of environments are. And so those are some of the trends that are happening. Another trend that is happening that not Christian, it was Bo who mentioned, will AI kill college writing? Can AI write my blogs? Can AI write my reflection papers? And if it does, what does that mean? And Dr. Shorter mentioned same thing was predicted with calculators and a handheld, TR Radio Shack calculator devices. Same thing was, with thesauruses. Same thing with word processing. Same thing with, every advance in technology, PCs doing Excel sheets and spreadsheets, and will we lose our mathematical skills and the handwriting skills? And right?
I would argue for the calculator, the answer to that question is yes. For young students, that is 100% a problem that I see as a math instructor. They have lost a lot, and it's a big problem, and it's not getting better.
It is a huge problem. We need to do some mathematical calculations. You're right. What about in statistics classes, though, for graduate students? Or what about advanced where they...
Well, it's not so much, there's a time and a place for them. But what happens is when students don't learn how to add fractions, for example, 2/3 and 1/2, and they don't learn common denominators and things like that, when it's more simple because they're given a calculator, whatever, when you get into pre-calc and calculus and you're doing that with rational expressions that have variables in them and you can't use the calculator, they lose a lot of the skills that are needed. They didn't develop those earlier with more simple things, and so then they struggle when the expressions get harder. So there's a lot that gets built upon in math that I think is a big problem. Now, of course, right, with statistics and the statistical calculations, I mean, do you need to be able to calculate, the mean and the standard, well, the mean you can, the standard deviation by hand? I don't know. I would argue probably not, but there are some things with the algebra based subjects like, pre-calc, calculus, et cetera, that it does become a problem. Anyway,
Do we still need English skills if our computer bot can talk? If Christian's duplicate twin can talk for him, do we still need those English skills?
I mean, we don't have English skills either, to be fair. They're not great either, so I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I think we're all gonna get replaced. Then what are we doing? I don't know.
Yeah, you're learning another language, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Icelandic.
My friend was learning how to talk to his AI drawing bot the other day.
You saw what? You had a video on how to talk to a bot?
No, my friend, he's a graphic designer, and he was using one of the AI generative tools to design things, and he said there's different ways to write to the prompts that you give it to have it create whatever. He was learning how to get what he wanted better from the AI by saying it in a certain way. So he was like learning how to talk to the AI in a more effective way. I was like,
That's gonna happen.
okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and it makes sense what Megan's saying. Basic mathematical skills are so what's of value to you on an interactive daily basis, you're going to still need to know, despite the fact that a calculator can do it. You still need to know math for those one-to-one conversations you have with someone who says, I'm going to transfer some money into your bank account, or what are those things called now where you transfer it phone to phone and all that, the tools that we have, right? And so you don't want to be ripped off when someone comes to buy your car. Venmo, they have Venmo, they want to buy your car or buy your chair from you. You have to know those basic skills. You can be ripped off right and left, right? So so you have to know basic language. You have to know basic math. Those are not going to, is a what?
Cryptocurrency.
Cryptocurrency, yeah. Cryptocurrency. Well, if you want to go broke, I'm going to avoid that for a while, actually. I've seen too many people have some problems lately. Okay, let me go back to where I was on here, if I can find it. There we go. So AI, will it kill college writing? There's an article, you can read about it. There's concerns both in some optimism. There's always going to be concerns. I think that in this case, this goes beyond, I think, a calculator doing your math problems. I think having an AI tool writing papers, I think is going to be hugely problematic in higher education settings, because we already see services like the Evil House of Cheat and academictermpapers.com and Pink Monkey and all these websites that exist for you to buy your papers, and students are buying their papers. If they can pay $8 a page for a 8-page paper, they're definitely going to be willing to pay $30 a year to buy an AI tool that will write all their papers. And $30 is all they're going to have to pay for every paper they have to write in college in their 4 years. And people are going to opt to pay the $30 or the $40 or the fee. They'll opt to pay $1,000 if that costs $1,000 compared to paying each individual paper $8 a page. So these tools will exist, and they'll keep getting more into sophisticated and difficult to tell if you've bought your paper somewhere. So we're going to have to change our assessments. But even as we change our assessments and make them more complicated or more unique in nature, AI is quickly going to figure out, what's going on and provide the answer for you. Unfortunate as that may be, I'll let you just think about that. So read that and read Ray's article about transforming of education, of what AI and GPT-3, the third generation pre-trained transformer tools might offer us. whether it is offering us tutors on the fly, whether they're offering us AI generated tutors, or actually AI parents and grandparents to come back and answer our questions for us. And this is the type of technology that it's on my radar, and I've been reading a lot about this. There's an article in the journal from MIT, I don't know, Technology Review, talking about interacting with your parents. If they have enough video clips of them, AI is able to actually regenerate possible answers that they would give you and have conversations with you, even though they're long since passed away and deceased. And with all my videos up online, I'm really kind of a little bit concerned about what I'm going to be saying thousands of years from now to other people that I've never said or never would have said. But it's going to be a weird world, as it says. Find out what it's like to have your favorite professor who's been dead for so this professor was dead for 2 years and was giving feedback to students in a class because they had created an AI bot of him and the students didn't know. I think that was the article that came out last year. Yeah, and this will happen more and more when what's that?
The Soul Machine group, they are working with the people that own the rights to Marilyn Monroe to recreate her.
Okay. Okay. I don't think I can comment on that. I think I just have to move on, but I will say it's an interesting idea. I was thinking of other like baseball players or famous emperors and be able to go through different pieces of history. I wasn't thinking about movie stars or musicians, but I'd like to have a chat with the lead singer of the Doors, Jim Morrison, from the 60s or something like that. You guys are too young. But
I can
anyway,
imagine that the writings of Aristotle could be digested by an AI.
I imagine they could, and Plato too. If you have Plato and Aristotle, you could have AI bots, Plato and Aristotle, and pit one against the other. So here's the article about talking to your dead relatives. Digital clones of the people who you love can be there with you forever. That was last month. That was a month ago. So then there's also the acceleration of learning online in these massive open online courses, especially during COVID times. You can see what kind of courses were popular the first month of COVID, the first 2 months of COVID. These were the top 10 kinds of skill courses that were being taken in terms of growth mindset, creativity, communication skills, and so forth. And it changed by country. The US, everyone's taking Adobe Illustrator. In Spain, because they were on their balconies, they were taking piano lessons and guitar lessons to serenade their partners on the other patios or balconies out there. That was true. If you look at number one there in the bottom in Spain, it was piano. And in Canada, it was stock trading and mindfulness. In Mexico, it was speed reading and financial analysis. So there's different kinds of courses that were popular immediately during the pandemic. There were skills that were there was bent up demand for certain kinds of skills, and lo and behold, they were taking those courses. And this is an article in Business Wire, I think. And you look at the growth of MOOCs, and I'll talk about this next spring in R678. So I don't want to go belabor this too much, but MOOCs aren't going away. Open education isn't going away. AI is not going away. Courses are getting more massive, including one of the person's courses we were studying to create the guidelines on self-directed learning. Her name is Laurie Santos. She's the professor at Yale who has the largest class at Yale taken by 3 million people on happiness and wellness. And she does great things to engage her students and personalize the learning environment. Very popular. Over 200 million students from 950 universities taking 19,000 courses in a massive way. These kids were taking English from massive open online courses and getting credentials from the US consulate before the pandemic. During the pandemic, they took dozens and dozens of other courses in paleontology, in Egyptian history, in finance and psychology. And so we've been interviewing them about what their learning was like, about their incentives. We've been interviewing their teachers about the support structures that they provided. And we're about ready next month in December to write up the first couple of studies of this project. So I've been doing the Duolingo study and this study, as well as research on MOOCs in general, all with a focus on how do people become more self-directed in their learning pursuits. And then in my book, MOOCs and Open Ed in the Global South, we talk about kids doing environmental cleanup project as part of these global courses for a cause, if you will. We have agriculture. We have a chapter on egg MOOCs where farmers are finding about crop rotations and fertilization and budgeting and distribution and all sorts of things from their mobile phones. So this is a smart learning environment. If they can capture all this stuff as a text message, because they can't afford to have a desktop computer with internet access, but they can have a mobile phone. And so there's people who are creating technologies that a delivery platform at a low cost, low budget, to enable people to be educated wherever they are in the world on their handheld devices. That's really cool. And this week, Saturday, what day is today, Christian? Monday? So 5 days from now, the folks who are doing this project at Stanford called, what is the title of this now? Coding in Place, Code in Place. So Chris Peach, Mehran Sahami, and Julie Zelensky will be my guests this Saturday on Silver Lining for Learning, where they have no teachers. They have 900 volunteer teachers for 10,000 students across 120 countries teaching coding. If this isn't a unique learning environment, I don't know what is. If those farmers isn't a unique learning environment, I don't know what is. If these kids, this is unique. This is unique. All these are unique learning environments that are springing up. So we're talking about learning environment design in here. You probably didn't think about kids in Nepal learning English and getting certificates from the US consulate. They were designing those learning environments. They're helping kids get the internet connections when the pandemic hit. So the internet has exploded in Nepal. And parents are worried kids would play games, but the kids weren't playing games. Instead of playing games, they're learning English from Harvard. I mean, the whack is in the side of the head. So we have to get rid of old notions of what education is and what learning is and what competencies are. The competencies today are related to climate change action and global collaboration for climate change action, right? That youth participatory learning network from the University of Colorado we had like 5 weeks ago with Ben. That was great. Farmers in Africa getting training on mobile devices. Probably none of you had that as your final project, right? Or these people. One of my good friends teaches Python programming to teachers, thousands of them, to help ramp them up to teach high school computer science. So come Saturday, 5:30 Eastern, and you can ask questions. Come to the YouTube channel and put the question in live, and we'll ask it in Zoom, whatever you put in there. You probably didn't design your final project around monoliths, but monoliths are happening all around the world today. There was an art project at Duke, I think, that inspired this activism and social movements monolith project. These weren't space aliens coming down to visit us, as Christian thought, but this was artists, kind of interesting anyhow. You probably weren't thinking about this project. So there's a millionaire guy, and maybe he's a billionaire guy. He went to Arizona State and says, I got an idea. I'd like to educate 100 million students and teach them about leadership, marketing, entrepreneurship, accounting, and data analytics. I want courses in that stuff. I want an AI bot in the background to give them feedback. And I want these courses to be free. I believe they're free. And so they created the 100 Million Learner Project. 100 million learners in a single project. I mean, that's game changing. That's transformative learning. I mean, there are 8 billion people on the planet now. So, it's 1/10 1/8 of 1/10, but still, it's a lot of people. 100 million is still, no matter how you slice it, 100 million is a lot of people, okay? So our field, this field, is making a huge impact, whether it's Code in Place project or the Agriculture MOOCs project or the Nepali project, Learning English. It's tons of different things are happening. Smart learning environments, right? So read up on that one. So those are the 30 ways learning is changing. I talked about some of those 2 weeks ago, being more on demand, flipped, massive, global, open, immersive, collaborative, digitally rich. Come to my R678 course next spring, and we'll expand on this talk at some point during the semester. But my main focus is that one in the middle, self-directed. For others, it's the one right in the middle, blended. Everything is blended today. So I've got a couple dozen questions. I probably shouldn't ask all. We should probably call quits here in a couple of minutes. But let me pose a couple questions about smart learning environments and get you thinking. You've posed your questions today. This is my chance for me to pose a couple questions. And I'm going to, for a second here, I'm going to hide my video panel so I can read these questions better. So first question, in what ways will learning become more personalized during the coming decade? How will this impact you and your potential? Just think about that. In what ways might learning be more personalized? And if it is more personalized, what will you be doing in a decade from now? What would be doing? And if you got an answer to any of these, go ahead and type in the chat window. I'd be curious to read them. How effective will conversational agents become? This is a question that Christian had, or Patrick had. Somebody had this question about, how effective is translation going to be in these tools, and the conversation's going to be, and how often will we rely on the Alexas and the Google Homes and other such technologies for our daily interactions. I start every day talking to Alexa or Google Home every day. I ask what the weather's going to be like, so if I know I'm going to run in the morning or run in the afternoon. If it's freezing in the morning, I'll wait until the afternoon. Will robots be akin to having a peer in a class for different activities? Will we have robots in every single group, or within some groups, some of the time, all the time? And how soon will this be happening to change the classroom structures and change the environmental structure? Will robots be like Spock in Star Trek, be the logic part of the group, and we be creative? If we have the robot telling us the logical stuff, can we then free us up to be more spontaneous and generative and so forth? Will e-portfolio tools efficiently account for informal learning, outside classroom time kinds of learning from these free and open contents? And how will they provide that? And how much will it be accepted by corporate people out there and higher ed administrators? How will questions of engagement shift as learning is more immersive, taught in a more immersive meta world type of, metaverse type of way, or more massive, or more visually based? If blended is the norm for young kids today, what's it going to be like when they get to college? If young kids today are all taking at least one online class or 2 online classes in high school, what are they going to expect when they get to college and beyond? What are qualities of effective teaching in a world dominated by digital, free and open content, multimedia, with chatbots? Is effective teaching the incorporation of those chatbots and that multimedia, and how so? How will this free and open content typically be updated and maintained and sustainable? Who's going to do that? And who's going to provide the resources to make sure that those 100 million learner project doesn't go out of date within 5 years, right? At Arizona State, or the Khan Academy contents. Who's updating those, and how are they updated? And there will be an AI bot updating those things? What means of automatic translation will exist in a decade? How much will you rely on it each day to function with international collaborators on documents? So if translation happens on the fly in all sorts of languages, your potential partners out there could be anybody, not just folks that speak English or your native language or your second language. Could be anybody, could be folks in Patagonia, or in far reaches of, Canada or Finland and so forth. That would be an interesting thing to have happen. Will students, when they enter schools, pick their peers for the day from different parts of the world? And just say, today I'd like to work with someone from Singapore and someone from India and be able to talk to them easily and seamlessly because the AI bot will translate on the fly, right? How can educational agents and chatbots and robots and immersive worlds effectively be embedded in society to continue to foster learning as people increasingly live to 80, 90, or 100 years old and beyond? What are the roles of those chatbots and robots and OER for people as they age or don't age and just want to get new skills and reskilled and upskilled? Well, maybe the teacher in the loop leaves or takes a much lesser role as folks get older. Maybe it's almost 100% if someone 4, 5, 6 years old or 3 years old. As you get to 7, 8, 10, 12, 15, 20, 30, 40, it maybe becomes a decreasing percent of time, or the people in you, the humanness in it changes. What will the definition of smart be? Creating smart learning environments. What is smart? What does smart mean today or 20 years from now or 50 years? What does it mean to be smart, and do you rely on your smarts? How much data is too much data? Will instructors have information filtering and restriction devices embedded in their information dashboards so as to avoid going insane and going bonkers, literally, from having so much new research and new findings that you just can't accommodate all of that? Or are we going to need a chip in our brain to slow it all down? Well, various mobile and intelligent technologies enable smart learning environments with such features as tracking the learning process, predicting the learner's best next moves, predicting what questions you'll get wrong, predicting what questions you will get right, deciding on what prompts to give out, deciding on what prompts to pull away. If that happens, if this happens, God help us, we'll all be automatons. This is not my dream of the future. Smart learning environments might monitor, track, and guide learners in highly effective ways using knowledge maps that Christians creating, using other kinds of guides. But what happens if the learners feel they're being manipulated by the outside bot, by the intrusive nature of those intelligent, quote unquote, agents, and purposely make decisions that counter to those personalized learning environments? What if the learners, what the humans decide, let's not use that. Let's not do what they're saying. Worse, what happens when learners fail to feel the intrusiveness? When in actuality, there's an intrusive nature to all this technologies, but the learners become numb to it. Even the teachers become numb to it. The administrators become numb to it. What if we then become an assembly line of education, right? The self or smart learning environments, the self-directed learning environments become an assembly of expectations and implementation. Can you effectively interpret key student emotions, volition, well-being, happiness through big data? Can it actually tell us about what the satisfaction rates of our students and the well-beingness of our students, and how they will survive this age of overwhelmingness of data? How's the notion of smart learning environment evolved in the past decade, and how's it going to be evolving on into the future? How will we recognize when we've arrived at a smart stage? If we're creating smart learning environments, how are we going to know when we know? What is it? What will it mean to be smart, to be smarter, or be equipped to become smart, to know where to get the information you need just in time, just enough? What's the state? What are stages of learning when we have intelligent agents wrapped around us that might elevate us to a whole new level that we hadn't even imagined? And if we have machine-centered pedagogy, is it being cloaked under the disguise of personalized learning from Bill Gates? Is Bill Gates really creating automatons out there, right? How will digital archaeologists and anthropologists and educators in the future 100, 500, or 1,000 years from now, look at today. Look at what's happening, what we're doing in this class here in 2022. And will teacher training programs need to be changed to account for and address these new changes in learning environments that wrap around us? How smart must a learner be to take advantage of these smart learning environments? What metacognitive level must we be at to exploit or utilize or take advantage of the different tools and resources that wrap around us in our environments? Are smart learning environments still smart when someone leaves the room and turns the lights off? Are they quote unquote smart when the power goes off in Ukraine? Or are they dumb environments that happen to have electricity pumping through them, right? Might the best forms of smart learning environments allow equal time for dumb learning to take place? Maybe, I don't know. We DLEs. Could we have possibly, like, these base knowledge, as Megan says, we have to teach basic facts, and not just be elevating students up to the really high level metacognitive level. We need both. We need basic facts and the high low. What will this class emphasize in next year, 5 years, 10 years, and so forth? And where will SLEs, smart learning environments, make a difference in society? Are we getting smarter? Are we getting smarter? No, 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 no. That's the end. That's a lot of questions. I'm curious if you had answers, so I'm going to read through some of these things that you've written up here. Nathalie, many e-portfolio tools are offering micro-credentials. I see them increasing. You want to comment on that, Nathalie?
Sure. Well, recently we, at my current and last institution, we were looking at different platforms in comparison to our current e-portfolio platform. Every single one of them includes micro-credentialing. And what's really neat about them too is that they allow you to select like just mini goals to build up to receive that credential. So it might say, all right, in order to receive this credential, you have to do these 6 different steps, these 6 competencies. So it's really cool to see how that's been incorporated. And some of them even incorporate directly to our LMS platform. So that makes it even easier for the institution to adopt.
You're at St. Xavier, or you were. Today you said your first day at the new place?
Yes, so I'm not at St. Xavier anymore.
So a round of applause for your new job.
you.
So remote working for Baylor University in Waco, Texas. Then you can live in Chicago and not have to go to Waco. That's a good deal, right?
Yes. Although my cats have been kind of upset with me. I have 3 behind me that I've just tried to make a truce with. I said, as long as they sit in a cat bed, we're good.
So off the record, this is not being recorded. It actually is being recorded. Are you going to have to pay Texas state taxes or Illinois state taxes?
I don't know yet.
You gotta find out, because Texas has no state taxes and Illinois does. Just letting you know.
I was very confused today completing that exact documentation. I was like, I don't know what's happening here. I need to schedule an appointment. I had that very same question about state taxes.
I think you're gonna have to pay Illinois state taxes.
I think so. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
They're not going to get away with me not paying. I know that for sure.
Yeah, but if you found a apartment you could have and stay there a couple of months out of the year, which you probably won't, you could probably use that as your second home. I'm a former accountant. I don't trust me at all. I'm not an accountant anymore. That's what, but you might want to look into that. Anyhow, GSV, so I knew it started with a G, GSV Summit. At Arizona State. Thanks, Christian, for finding that. I definitely recommend people look for that. It's the cool thing to do, to go to that conference, but it's like $1,500 to attend or something like that. Now, the dean at Arizona State was on Silver Lining, and she offered to get me in free last year, but I couldn't get there, unfortunately. But maybe some other time I'll get invited. Any final comments, my questions or my ideas about smart learning environments?
Lots of thoughts, but I don't know if there's enough time.
Go ahead. I'll tell you when you run out of time. I'll let you have. So we'll
So
all, Christian have the
I
last
started-
word for tonight.
I started taking pictures, screenshots of all your questions, just so I could kind of, because I had responses to just about all of them. But one of them I'm going to touch on is the number 21, which is dreams of smarter learning, and what threshold do you need to be at to be able to use these smart learning system and environments? And I think that will be a very interesting question, because just like a calculator, you can approach a mathematical problem, freeing up that human mental space by augmenting that sort of basic knowledge to that other device. And what will that then allow us to do if we have augmented those basic knowledge sets, which will increase as AI gets smarter? That basic, what we call basic, will become a much larger pool of information and knowledge. And then what does that free us up to do?
Yeah. And how will we look at ourselves when we do make mistakes, simple, very simple ones that could have been easily solved by an AI bot? I mean,
I've heard that in the legal practice, if you aren't using some AI technologies soon, it might be considered malpractice to not use AI, because it does a search of all of the case studies in such a way that you won't miss anything if you use an AI bot. But if there's just piles and piles of case study law that if you don't go through it, you might miss something. Right.
What is an expert lawyer today if the AI bot can understand all the case law and all the decisions that have been made in the past? Is that person who relied on their expert knowledge of their kind of could go through their brain and just pick out the appropriate case that would fit? If AI can do that, what skill is that expert lawyer then providing for you, right? And that's why paralegals are in jeopardy of losing their jobs. That's why pharmacist assistants are in jeopardy of losing their jobs. That's why basic accounting bookkeepers are losing their jobs. I mean, there are many fields that are being impacted by the automation cycle here. And we could go on and on and on. I'm glad you picked that question. You want to pick one more question that you wrote down?
Let's see. I'll just go with one of the earlier ones. What are the qualities of effective teaching in the world dominated by digital forms of learning and free and open content? It kind of goes to the same concept of what's basic, and what do teachers need? What do teachers need to teach if there's a basic knowledge that's already like augmented in our human reality?
What should go in the teacher training programs? What courses need to go in the teacher training programs if we move into an AI-based world? What should we be teaching them and how to survive within such a world? And so I think the kind of courses that we teach them are going to change. I want to thank everyone for coming into both sections of week 14. I want to also mention again, for those watching the tape, for those that are here, that next semester I will teach R511, the instructional technology foundations, recommended to your peers or whomever. Also teaching dissertation prep. In the fall, I think I'm going to do the instructional strategies class R546. And this course, R622, R546, we cover critical and creative thinking, cooperative learning, motivation strategies. And in the spring next year, I think I'm going to do emerging technologies or emerging learning technologies, R678, and something else. I'm not sure yet what that something else is, but so that's, I'd love to see you in another class. I'll mention this again next week. Soon may hang on. I'm going to stop the recording at this point. It is